We are
Yes.
live.
Okay. I guess I'm not really sure what the call to order is, so I should have probably prepared myself a little better. Anybody want to enlighten me?
That is simply calling the meeting to order and announcing the date and that it's a meeting of town council.
All right, thank you. Okay, so this is the December 14th, 2020 meeting of the Signal Mountain Town Council. Are we ready to begin? Okay, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. Does somebody lead us in that? Andrew looks ready, I guess. Andrew, somebody leading us in this? Everybody's on mute.
Mayor, you do.
I lead it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right, I'm not sure I remember it. I'll let Andrew lead it today.
I pledge allegiance.
To the
I pledge
flag
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, how about the invocation? Don't tell me I'm supposed to lead that too.
Often done, just a moment of silence.
Okay, thank you. Should have watched one of these meetings again. Okay, so we'll have a moment of silence. How about we have a moment of silence now as an invocation? Okay. Are we ready for the roll call?
Vice
Yes.
Mayor Susannah Murdock,
Here.
Councilmember Vicki Anderson. Vicki, you're muted. Councilmember Vicki Anderson for the roll call.
I think you need to say yes for here.
Oh, here, I'm sorry, I just now got sound. Yes.
Councilmember Andrew Gardner,
Here.
Councilmember Dan Landrum,
Here.
Mayor Charles Poss.
Here. Okay, before we get to the approval of the minutes, because we're having meetings online and electronic meetings, we're doing this pursuant to the executive order number 65 from the governor. And there's a memorandum that came out from the Tennessee Comptroller's Office that says we're supposed to have a discussion and agree that it's in the best interests of the health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans to have electronic meetings due to COVID. So we have to have that agreement. It says we need to vote or otherwise, but I think it might be best just to have a vote that we agree we should be meeting in an electronic format, at least for the present. And this order goes through December 27th. So if we have a meeting on December 28th, we'll either have to do it in person or there will be another executive order. So at least for now, can we have a discussion or or if everybody needs to have a discussion, we can. If not, we'll just have a vote that this is the best thing for the health, safety, and welfare of the Tennesseans.
So should we make a motion to do that, or do we need?
Sure, I guess we'll have a motion.
So I'll make a motion that our next meeting is done via Zoom
Okay.
on
This
December the 28th at 6 o'clock.
We actually need to
This
have
one,
a
right?
motion about this. Yeah. Can you make a motion for this meeting to be done on Zoom?
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't following.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
I guess it's before we start the motion, we need to just, the meeting, we need to have an agreement that it should be done electronically.
Yeah, so for the month of December,
Yeah,
Are
that's,
you are you continuing your motion? I'm a little,
I guess, so can I make a motion that we conduct our meetings for the month of December via Zoom?
do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, can we vote? Or do we need any discussion first?
I think you ask if there's any discussion, but
Yeah, okay. I take it nobody needs to discuss. Can we have a vote now?
I'm sorry, and I don't want to overstep, but I just, if you're gonna be making your motion for the month of December, you may just want to clarify, provided that such is allowed for the second meeting.
Okay. Provided such is allowed.
All right, so that's an amendment to your motion.
Carol, does that get it?
yes, but I now need Councilmember Anderson to second that
I second.
revision.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Okay. So is there any discussion now on this revised motion?
I think it's a very good idea.
Let's go ahead and have a roll call vote then.
Susannah Murdock,
Yes.
Councilmember Vicki Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Andrew Gardner,
Yes.
Councilmember Dan Landrum,
Yes.
Mayor Charles Poss.
Yes. Along those lines, the executive order required that we give notice to the public on how they can obtain real-time live access to the meetings. And so I think it wasn't on the town website that I could tell any information on how to access this. I didn't check today, but over the weekend I checked. So, and obviously we've started this meeting, so if it wasn't on there, it's too late. But I think for the future, if there's going to be a meeting online, there should be something on the website that says how you can access it. I know some people know how to access the Facebook page, but I don't. And so I think it would be a good idea for us just to post that whenever we post the agenda for the meeting.
There was a notice on the homepage that indicated that you could view it on Signal Mountain's YouTube page. It did not give a lot of details, so we have added that today to give a little more information in detail, but it did state that it would be on the town's YouTube page.
And also, I think Sam told us last meeting that we've got a new Twitter handle. What is that address, Sam?
It'll be twitter.com and then it's at Signal Town. We also have a Facebook page and it seems like we have something. I guess the YouTube page is the other. So
Twitter's a great way to spread info fast too.
We're up to about 20 followers on Twitter, so we'd love to have some more.
Like that for sure.
Okay. Where can you find the notices, like how to find the meeting online if you're looking on the town website?
It is on the, give me just a second. It's on the homepage of the town website. And you have notices about the different things relative to COVID-19. And then under general town government, it says all council and committee meetings have been taking place electronically via Zoom platform. All meetings are live streamed on our YouTube page. And we've now added what that page is, and citizens can participate and how they can do that.
Okay.
Also from that page at the very bottom, there are links to the Facebook, Twitter, YouTube page, and the place where you can sign up for the email blast system, just for anyone who may not have.
This may just be me, but what I would love to see is just like, if where we mention that we're having Zoom electronic meetings, if there's a link right there that takes you to the live stream,
Yeah, like at the
to
top,
that page.
at the top, it says council meeting December 14th at 6 p.m. And it has the agenda. I would think it'd be a good idea to have it there, the information. It says it's meeting via Zoom, but it doesn't really say right there where, how you can access it.
Should it have the Zoom address or should it have like a link to the live YouTube portion? Of
It would
the-
be the YouTube.
Okay. That's fine.
And
Yeah,
just so
anyway,
you all are aware, I'm sorry, go ahead, Joe.
No, I just think when you go to the town website, like I just did, I see the agenda, which is a link. I would like to see somehow some information on how to access the meeting live right there where the agenda is. Make it easy.
Could join
And I was just
here.
going to add that during the course of the meeting, I haven't had a chance to yet. I was just about to do that. We do always post a link directly to this particular feed, the actual streaming meeting on the Facebook page, which is generally the thing that I have the most access to make quick changes. And I'll try to do the same to Twitter.
Okay. All right. Okay, so any more discussion about that? If not, we can go to the approval of the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to see the minutes? Does anybody have anything they want to change about them or talk about? Okay, if not, does anyone want to make a motion to approve the minutes? No?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Does anyone want to second that motion?
Second.
All right, thank you.
If we can, for the record, the motion is for November 9th and November 23rd.
Thank you.
Here's Susannah Murdock.
Yes.
Councilmember Vicki Anderson.
Yes.
We can't hear you, Carol.
Councilmember Andrew Gardner.
Yes.
Councilmember Dan Landrum.
Yes.
Mayor Charles Poss.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Now is our citizens' opportunity to address the council. Is there anyone who's asked to address the council?
We had no one request to speak.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so let's move on to the audit presentation. Is Brian Wright going to make a presentation? Okay,
Yes, and I'm bringing him in at this time.
all right. Hi, Brian.
Hi there.
Welcome to our meeting.
Glad to be here.
Well, thank you. All right, I'll let you go ahead and take it from here. This is Brian Wright, and he's going to make a presentation regarding the financial audit.
Okay, as some of you, hopefully most of you know, or not most of you, but I'm Brian Wright with Johnson Murphy and Wright CPA firm. I'm here to deliver the audit for June 30th of 2020. Seems like a lifetime ago. If you, I don't know if, I think I talked to Sam, yeah, there it is.
Yes, sir.
This is page 22 if you have the hard copy. If not, I was just going to hit a few spots. The general fund that you see on the far left there, that's the main operating fund of the city. And as of June 30th of 2020, we had total revenues of 8.3 million. That was actually up $711,000 over last year. We had, of course, additional property taxes, and we did have some loss of some revenues like fees from recreation and the MAC and some other fees that we didn't have because everybody's sitting at home having so much fun. But the combination of the increased taxes and some loss of revenues, but we were still up $711,000. So that was good from that standpoint. Our expenditures, if you look on down, we have total expenditures of $7,440,098. That's up about $263,000 over last year. Those increases were mainly in the general government division, was up about 52,000. Public Works was up about 150,000, and we had some additional capital outlay. So if you take the 8.3 million revenues minus the $707,440,000 expenditures, we had excess of revenues over expenditures of $882,181. That's about $400,000 over last year. And if you're going down, we had transfers out, which we had the various funds, State Street Aid Fund, Vehicle Replacement Fund. We transferred out about $552,000 to the various funds, which left us a net income, or it's called net change in fund balance, but it's easier to say net income of $329,271 for the general operations of the city for that year ended. And to look at that over last year, it's kind of hard to look at last year because last year we had a loss of $1.5 million. But that's mainly because we spent so much money in the building program, building the fire hall, improvements to the MAC and other things. But it's easier to compare it to 2018. In 2018, we had revenue of $193,000. So 18 was more on the same keel that we run. So looking at 18, we were up a little bit, but I would say for what was going on this year, the revenues of $329,000 was pretty good as far as we were concerned. The next fund over is a special revenue, which is a State Street Aid Fund. It had revenues of $569,370, total expenditures of $999,724. And majority of that was, you see, Public Works, we had paving. It was like $705,862 as a figure. That was for paving and maintenance that we did. And the $293,000 in capital outlay in that fund was for some bridge work we had done and some other road repairs. So we had the $569,000 in revenues, $999,000 expenditures, which left us excess expenditures of $430,000, or loss of $430,354. Transfers in of $143,000, which left that fund with a deficit of $286,915. Of course, it is the State Street Aid Fund, which is basically revenues coming in from, of course, the state shared money that we get for streets, and also money transferred in from the general fund. So we had a beginning fund balance in that fund of $654,301. So we basically just spent money we had on hand, saved up in the excess there. We'll set us a fund balance of $367 in that fund. The next column is the Vehicle Replacement Fund. We had $82,000 in other revenues. We had expenditures of $66,247, which majority of that was for a couple of trucks that we purchased, I think for the Public Works Department, $60,044. So we had revenue of $82,743, expenditures of $66,247. which left us with income of 16,496 in that fund. We also had transferred in $409,000, which, for planned equipment replacement, we transfer money into that fund every year. So we had 409,000 transferred in. So our net change in fund balance or net income in that fund was 425,967. Other governmental funds, we'll see a little bit more detail on those in a second. That's the building construction fund and the drug fund. They basically had revenues of $14.99, expenditures of $71,742. We had some debt issuance proceeds of $374. So we had a net change in fund balance or net income of $304,253 in the other governmental funds. Is there anything you see right here you want to talk about more before we move on? I know you hadn't had much time to see these yet, and I can get with y'all anytime you need to after this, but anything else there y'all want to talk about?
Does anybody have any questions so far?
I know you're just getting these, it's all new, but I'll be glad to.
I have one question, and that is when you look at the the expenditures we made for the buildings, the fire hall and the MAC, is there do we have that separate out, or is it just together?
Those are mainly done in previous years.
Okay.
We spent over $1 million in 2019, 861,000 for the fire department and about 511 on the MAC. And we also had some expenditures in 2018, I believe. So the expenditures for those two items, they've already been, I've got I can show you those. I have copies of those other reports, and I think Carol does too. So if you want more of that in detail, I can get that to you anytime.
All right. Thank you very much.
No, you're welcome.
And if I might, we do account for each of those projects separately and account for them in a great amount of detail separately. And we can also provide that information at any time.
Okay, if we can move on with our picture there to, I think, which is page 38. This is the income statement for our proprietary funds, which is for our proprietaries for the water and the stormwater fund. So our water fund had operating revenues of $1,610,037. That's actually up $282,000 over last year. Of course, the majority of that is in water sales. That was up $235,000. So we had operating revenues of $1,610,037. We had operating expenditures of $1,565,898. That's up about $100,000 over last year. So it wound up with our operating income of $44,139 in the water fund. So we're positive in there. So that's good. It makes the state happy, makes us happy. But because in 2019 we had a loss of $132,464 in the water fund. So we've turned that around $170,000 worth this year. So we also had interest earnings, amortization expense of $32,296. So our change in net position or our net income in the water fund was $76,435,000 to the good versus we had a loss of $87,000 last year. So that fund's done a whole lot better. The second enterprise fund is the stormwater fund. Had revenues of $299,729, which is almost right on the button what we had last year. We had right at $300,000 last year. We had operating expenses of $423,991, which is actually $10,000 less, just about $10,000 less than last year. So our operating income had a loss. Actually, our operating loss in that fund was $124,262 versus $129,000 last year. So we just did a little bit better, but had interest earnings of $768. So our net change position or our net loss there was $123,494, which Like I said, last year we lost 128, so we did a little better, but that may be another area that you know, need to look at in the future. So both funds together had a loss of $47,059, but overall that turnaround in the water fund was pretty positive. I think if you flip on to page 74. This is our non-major governmental funds, which on the first sheet we looked at, we had that column that said other governmental funds. Well, this is that too, that made up that column. One is the drug fund and the other is the building construction fund. Drug fund had revenues of $1,499. Public safety expenditures of $9,864, which in that case, that all has to be drug fund related some way in relation to helping out in that cause. So we had total expenditures of 9,864. We wound up revenues of 1,499. So that fund lost $8,365. Last year it lost $3,500, but we had a $17,000 beginning fund balance, so we still have $8,666 in the drug fund. Our capital projects fund, building construction. In that fund, we had some public works expenditures of $5,000. We had some public welfare and recreation, which was over at the MAC. I believe some of that was MAC related. So we had total expenditures in that fund of $61,878. We had some proceeds from debt issuance of $374,496, which leaves a net change of fund balance of a positive $312,618 in that fund. So that's our two other governmental funds. And really, the only other thing I have left is the next page. I think it's page 98, which is your last page. It's a schedule of findings and responses, or what used to be findings and question cost. The opinion we gave on the report, as you can see, was an unmodified opinion issued. The final statements in accordance with government auditing standards and the Comptroller General of the United States. An unmodified is the best opinion you can get. That's a clean opinion. If we had found something material or something that caused us to take a qualification, then you would have got a modified opinion with findings. You also had internal control deficiencies. None were disclosed, and material non-compliance. There was none of that either. So overall, you had a clean opinion with no findings, which is very hard to get. We do over 10 cities in the Chattanooga area, and it's rare that people get this one. They get it occasionally, but usually there's something that comes up. So I just want to thank Boyd and Carol for all their help and the rest of their staff. They got everything to us that we needed and were most helpful. And from what I could see and what we could find during the audit, everything was materially correct. And we appreciate the opportunity. And like I said, I know that y'all have just got these things, and a lot of it's just like, might as well be in Japanese or something. But between Carol and I, we got the backup for all these numbers. So if Carol can't give it to you, we can drill down even further between one of us, and we can come up with if you want to detail on it, what made up this number, we can get to you and tell you what it was. One more quick thing, which I didn't tell Sam about it, but I'll just say this. In the front of the report, when you get your hard copy, or when I know somebody that just, if I go through your PDF on pages, which are 4 through 15 in front of the report, is a management discussion and analysis, and it's kind of a summary. It's a really good, all the different types of government operations are summarized. There's charts and graphs and all that kind of fun stuff to look at. Makes for great sugar plum dancing in your heads kind of thing. But anyway, that's a good place to start. And then you can, everything kind of drills down from there. As you go back, you get more and more detail. So anyway, like I just said, just thank you to y'all. And my phone's on anytime.
I don't want to tell us that, Mr. Wright, but thank you. And thank you to Boyd and Carol for your work in putting that together as well. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Wright before we let him go?
I don't have.
Excuse me.
I don't have a question, but I would just like to say that, you know, Carol, Sherry, and some of the other office staff put in a lot of work to assist the auditors in what they're here to do. But ahead of that, all of the departments, department heads, spend an entire year doing what we need to do and doing it well, or these audits would not come out the way they do. So it's not just while the auditors are here, it's the year that led up to that, and staff has done, again, an excellent job. So I just want to acknowledge that and express my appreciation.
And here, Brian mentioned the unmodified audit this year. There was an unmodified audit for the last at least 4 years, if not 5 years in a row. Do you know, Carol? Is it 5?
I don't know right off, but I'm thinking it's 5.
I think it's 5. That's pretty amazing, guys.
Yeah, that is good.
Yeah, their staff does a really good job of. We've harped on them for a while about what you need to do, the controls you need to have, and they make sure they get them done. And it's always good. You know, I don't know, tell me how many times we go in and tell people, yeah, you could really do this. It would really help you out. And we go back the next year, and it's the same thing. So they really listen and they make changes we suggest as far as controls for y'all. And we appreciate all that. And on top of that, I just want to say Merry Christmas to everyone. I'm sorry, I know I'm a little shaky on this one. I've only done 2 of these Zoom calls, believe it or not, in the past 6 months, and both had my kids on the other end of it. So this is a little new to me. So I look forward to when we can do in-person meetings.
We do too. Thank you.
Brian, I just want to say thank you for being so difficult on us. It keeps us on our toes, and we do appreciate it.
Well, we do what we can do.
I actually, when you guys were at lunch one day, I actually took a picture of the room where you guys were set up. It looked like a war zone. I mean, it's hard to explain the amount of documents they pull and what they go through. And I mean, it again, I know people may not understand, but we appreciate them being as hard on us as they are. They come in, we have, for the most part, no idea what they're going to ask for and look for. And they spend days at a time doing exactly what we need them to do. And that's what helps us keep operations where they need to be. So I really do appreciate that.
All right.
It's rather interesting. They come with 4 or 5 or 6, depending upon how many they think they need. And you've got them all, you got them in a line at your door waiting to ask questions or to get documents sometimes. So it is rather interesting.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you. And does anybody have any further discussion? Mr. Wright, thank you for being here. I don't think anybody had any questions, so you can head on to dinner or whatever you need to do. Thank you.
Well, thank y'all for having me, and congratulations on those of you that are new in office, and look forward to working with you.
Thank you. Does anybody want to have any discussion on that, or should we move to our next topic? Okay, no discussion. All right, we're next to have a WWTA audit from Mike Patrick. Is he here and available as well?
Yes, he's coming in at this time, as well as Scott McDonald, who's with the engineering firm they work with.
Mayor, when they come on, would you mind asking them for their name and address for the record? It's just one of the requirements that any outside person that speaks. And I completely forgot when Brian first started, so my bad.
It's okay. I'm obviously new to this as well. So, okay. So we have Mike Patrick and Scott McDonald. These name tags are fantastic on Zoom. Guys, if you could, starting with Mike, if you could introduce yourself, give us your name and your address, that would be great. So starting with you, Mike. And you are on mute, so you'll need to hit that button. Okay.
Let's forget to do that, it seems. Anyway, my name is Mike Patrick, and I'm the Executive Director of the WWTA. My address is 1250 Market Street, Chattanooga, Tennessee, 37402.
All right.
And I am Scott McDonald. I am an engineer with S&ME. We've been working for WWTA on quite a few projects. My address is 1120 Bunker Ridge Trail, Soddy Daisy, Tennessee.
Okay, thank you, guys. It looks like Mike and I guess Scott are going to give us an update from WWTA. So I'll let you take it from here, Mike.
So a quick thing about me, I've been with the WWTA for a little under 3 years. I've been the Executive Director for just over a year and a half. Prior to that, I worked for the City of Chattanooga for 25 years, ultimately retiring as the Director of the wastewater collection system there. So that's a little background for me in terms of wastewater. So we have a few things to talk about. Just a quick update. Boyd had asked for that, so I'll just dive right in if you're ready.
We're ready.
All right. So as you all are aware, we've got a wastewater collection system on top of the mountain, a wastewater treatment plant at the bottom of the mountain. There's roughly 40 miles or so of collection system on top of the mountain, all draining down to the plant at the bottom of the mountain. And both have their share of issues and have had those for quite a while. The plant is approximately 50 years old. And while general maintenance has been done, to the best of my knowledge, there hasn't been any major upgrades or a whole lot of improvements to the plant in the time of its operation. Now, the wastewater collection system on top of the mountain is a little bit older than the plant. I'm really not entirely sure of the exact age of most of the wastewater collection system, but it is really the thing that governs the entire problem on Signal Mountain. There has been a state-imposed moratorium on the mountain for new sewer connections since 2008, and that's somewhat rare. I'm not sure if there's another state-imposed moratorium for a collection system anywhere in the state of Tennessee. Typically, there are self-imposed moratoriums that you have to impose upon yourself according to your permit when you have more than 5 overflows from one particular location. That particular line segment and any line segment above it would be under a connection moratorium after that. So in the case of the signal system, the entire system is under a moratorium due to plant violations and overflows on top of the mountain. Most of the plant violations are driven because of excessive inflow and infiltration of stormwater and rainwater into the collection system that basically just overwhelms the plant. Scott, can you, or Sam, can you start the slideshow?
I don't have access to that, sir.
I'll pull it up. I didn't know if Sam was going to do it or not. So
Sorry, I never received that slideshow. Sorry about that.
I can pull it up real quick. Sorry about that, Mike. Hold on. Let me flip screens here so it'll come up.
Sam, you probably know, but you'll have to make him a host or it'll be in a tiny screen. You have to give him
I
permission. to
can.
share
He
his
should
screen.
have the ability to share. Anyone should have the ability to share, but I can make him a host for
Well, if he can share, that's all.
just to be sure.
I'm going to pull it up here real quick. So give me a second, folks. All right. Can you see it okay?
I can see it pretty well. I don't know about the rest.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yes, sir.
So if you would, Scott, go to that first slide showing the layout. There we go. So there's the layout. If you look on the map, you'll see the sewer lines are the lines, the smaller lines in green there. The plant, of course, down by the river. See the little red dots? Those are SSO locations, sanitary sewer overflow locations. And generally, they are confined to the Green Gorge area and then the other area near the point there. And those are the reason, primarily the reason for the moratoriums are the SSOs. So a little bit about the plant. Average flows of about 468,000 gallons per day. Now that's widely varied. It can be as low as 200,000 gallons per day in the dry summer. And on a day like today, after the rain we had last night, it's probably in the 2.5 million gallon per day range, and will be that way until the flows subside. And basically, it's just, again, from excess rainwater coming into the system, causing overflows on the top of the mountain and overwhelming the plant's treatment capability. Generally, the plant does well. In heavy rain events, everything changes. And this next slide sort of tells a little bit about what's going on there and the whys. There's a lot of extraneous flow that can come from the house side of the connection. There is also a significant extraneous flow that comes from the main line connections. And of course, what's not shown on this is up on the mountain, a lot of the ravines have sewer lines in them, which make things very difficult to diagnose and repair. But this slide here really hits on a lot of the reasons we have these issues. We use words like inflow and infiltration. Inflow is just a direct connection like a storm drain or whatever, like the storm cross connection. And infiltration would just be the water seeping in the cracks and that sort of thing. Any questions about that slide?
Like, can I ask a question? Am I okay? You said ravines have sewer lines in them and they're hard to diagnose and repair. I mean, how many, can you give us an idea of like how many linear feet, or like what are we talking about in terms of how much of our sewer lines are in ravines up here? Because I know with the terrain, it's probably a lot.
It is a lot. I actually do not have a linear footage. I can get that, but I don't have that at hand. But it would be in the miles most likely. Not thousands of feet, but miles. And I've got some pictures farther on that will sort of illustrate the issues we'll have.
I have a question too. Sorry.
Okay.
I bought my house in 2000. I forget when, 2007, 6, 7. And I think at that time they were replacing all of the lines from the house to the connection, or in the process of it. Has that been done? Is that completed?
So we still do that as part of our private service lateral program. We have not replaced all the lines in the WWTA system. Frankly, we can't afford to replace all the lines in the WWTA system. What we do now is if you have a problem with your line, you call us and we'll assign a plumber to evaluate the line, and we'll make whatever repairs are necessary. But as far as a wholesale replacement of service lines in the WWTA service area, frankly, it's just not possible financially.
Wasn't that the plan? Because I think they added a service, a charge to your monthly bill to cover the cost of replacing all the lines. And I know they did replace a bunch of lines.
There is, and the cost is $8 per month. The problem is it doesn't even begin to cover all of the service laterals in the WWTA system.
Mike, is there accounting how much is spent in Signal Mountain on our system?
We do know how much we will ultimately spend now and will spend in the, well, let me back up. We have estimates of what we'll spend in the future, and they are highly variable.
I guess I'm thinking past more than future. You can get to these questions. I'll just fire 2 or 3 off and then mostly be quiet. I wanted to get minutes from meetings once upon a time and found that that wasn't as easy to do as I thought it should be, just to try to keep up and understand as a council member with what's going on. I wonder what would be the mess. So that's one that you can address at some point during this thing. I'd like to know how much money has been spent by WWTA on the I&I issues. And is it a matter of, is a plumber only pulled in if a homeowner says, hey, my yard smells? Or are we doing active diagnosis and reparation on the system to try to help us get out of the moratorium? Because I think that's what Charlie was referring to when this thing first began. It was a plan. Notices went out to homeowners and said, hey, we're going to try to fix all this. But then I think that ended, or it stopped, or it was a board decision or something. And I guess, and I'll throw one other out and then I'll be quiet. I wonder about the approval process for ongoing projects. A time or two, residents see new things going in and then inquire as to, well, why did that one go in if we have a moratorium? And the answer is usually, well, they were in the line. They were in the line before the thing began. I wonder how we can find out what's in the line and those kinds of questions.
So generally there was a pre-approved list prior to the moratorium. We do maintain that list. That list, there's really not much in the way of large type developments left. I don't know off the top of my head the number of lots, but there are not a whole lot still remaining on the pre-approved list. I can tell you that. As far as an accounting of the exact dollars spent solely on the Signal Mountain system, I am not sure if we do not keep a separate accounting of every dollar spent specifically towards the individual service areas. In other words, we've got, East Ridge, Red Bank, Signal, Lakeside, incorporated Hamilton County. I mean, I suppose someone could scour the data somewhere and come up with a list of addresses, but we generally just do not maintain that.
So stepping backwards to, is it just a matter now if a homeowner says, I'm smelling something in my yard, I think there's a problem? Or is there an active assessment going on to try to find the I&I problems?
So it works 2 ways. When we're doing a project, we will assess the service lines. In general, however, if there is a blockage or if a homeowner notices a problem, they just need to call the WWTA and we'll send someone out.
So the last step I remember there was some smoking of the system going on.
Yes.
That was last spring. I wish there was a way we got reports. So, when that happens, how do we as a council inform our residents? Okay, here's what they found. Here's where we are. This is what it's looking like. It's a major problem here.
It
obviously.
is.
Yeah. And
Can
the
you tell me
I&I,
what the testing of the system is?
I'll let Mike.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that question.
What does he mean? What does Dan mean when he says smoking of the system?
So an easy way to find leaks in sewer lines is you put, basically, for lack of a better term, a smoke bomb and a forced air smoke into the sewer system. And the smoke will come out where there are cracks and pipe deficiencies and that sort of thing.
Gotcha.
So I guess my question is, what types of assessments are done on those? It seems, and maybe since WWTA, and this might be something that isn't readily understood. I know I didn't understand it. Maybe I still don't. You may be discovering that right now, but it's, we look at the fees that go out and we look at the problems and think, boy, why isn't that being done? The positive side is we're not the ones being required to do it. This is a countywide effort, and the WWTA is in charge of taking care of the whole thing. Am I assessing that right, Mike?
Yes.
And so our situation is we want to see ours fixed, and so does every other small municipality around want to see theirs fixed. But it is our job to say, hey, why isn't ours being fixed? And it's
Right.
for us to know that if we don't have any metrics to know what's going on.
Well, in the coming years, you will see work being done, and that's a little bit more into the presentation. There's a couple of ways we're going to have to address this. I'll just say that the signal system, you know, I'm not familiar with every system in the state of Tennessee, but it'll rank that up there as one of the worst, in my opinion.
I thought you were going to say awesome.
No, it's exactly the opposite, to be honest. There are sewer lines located where we would never put a sewer line in this day and age. Couldn't put one in this day and age with all the permitting that we would have to go through. The problem is we have to go through that same permitting to make repairs.
I want to ask you a 40,000-foot question. It seems like the system up here is so extensive. If we ever want to get, we're going to have a report. I think that's tonight later from Cliff with the stormwater, that this all impacts the creeks that we have around here as well. And it doesn't seem like a nickel and dime approach to this is ever going to fix it. And
You're right.
Yeah, and our tax revenue, our population base is not really going to be large enough to support this. It seems like this needs higher level thinking of some kind of a state project. Would WWTA be a partner if some of us were to try to make some inroads with our state legislators to get this looked at as a major project? And where would we begin? And do you have suggestions for any of that?
I don't have suggestions, because if I did, I would be pursuing them. That would be a great thing. But typically, sewer repairs are funded solely by the ratepayer. You know, 45 years ago, there was free money from the federal government from the Clean Water Act. That doesn't happen anymore. Now it comes in the form of low interest loans that you are a first come, first serve situation. You may get a loan, you may not get a loan. You're competing with municipalities and counties and utilities all throughout the state of Tennessee for state of Tennessee approved loans.
So Mike, you've been doing this long enough, and I wouldn't hold you to anything, you know, specific numbers, but it seems like once upon a time, there was a number of probably a $40 million project or something to replace all the sewer lines. And, you know, I don't know where that came from, and I don't remember, so it may not be accurate. But to get an accurate estimate to jump in and fix it, how would we go about that? Or
well, we're assessing what we think things will cost. And well, I don't know about the $40 million figure, but
yeah.
the number is an 8-figure number. I mean, it's not small by any means.
You're talking about
across the customer base.
Are you talking about just Signal Mountain? Sorry to interrupt. Are you talking about all of Hamilton County or just Signal Mountain?
Just Signal Mountain.
Okay. Well, let's sure. Let's move on with the report. We can talk about some of these things. I think Dan's raising a lot of good points that we probably need to talk about and what we can really do to solve this problem. But I guess we'll hear the rest of your report, and then we'll pepper you with some more questions.
Okay. So I've just got a few slides up and coming just to show you just the situation we're dealing with here. If you can advance, Scott. So that's a line in the Green Gorge area. You can't really tell it, but there's a concrete encasement about middle of the picture near the vegetation. That's no place you want a sewer line, but that's what we've got to deal with. And I think that's a manhole right there in the bottom left corner. If you would keep going, Scott, we'll go through these and stop as necessary.
Okay.
There's another situation you don't want. I don't know if these lines were built in the creek, but the creek has obviously changed location over the last 50 to 70 years, whatever the case may be. And, you just don't go in with a track hoe and start tearing up the environment. Your other question is where do you move the line to? That doesn't wind up another issue later on. Keep going, Scott. So these are some other pictures. Just I think the picture on the far right is just another view of that previous one with the white. The white pipe is a service line pipe from an individual house, and that main line there is just the main trunk line, and you can see it's pieced together. So there's been some repairs done, but it's just really an unacceptable situation. However, it's not an easily repairable situation either.
This is all around Green Gorge?
Mostly Green Gorge. There are some other ravines as well that have these in there on the other side of the mountain.
And like, how old do you think these lines are? I mean, are we talking 20 years, 60 years, 50? What is it? It
depends. Anywhere. I know there was a fairly large push for sewers in the late 60s and 70s on Signal. I suspect there were sewer lines prior to that as well. So these are anywhere from well before 1970 to not much after in terms of new sewers. Like I said, you would not put any time in the last 30 or 40 years, you wouldn't put a sewer line where we have sewer lines now on Signal Mountain.
Yeah.
See, that's just, imagine what you would get into trying to replace these lines. The Green Gorge Park there that where one of the main feeder lines from the mountain goes through, just zigzags in and out of the creek up there. To replace that line, by the time we got through, Green Gorge wouldn't look much like it does now. That's the bottom line. And it'd be terribly expensive. However, we are going to have to do some of the work in these gorges because there really isn't an alternative. And that's really the big hurdle we have to get through is what is the best solution for the amount of money that we have.
I mean, like when you say it wouldn't look much like it does right now, like what are you saying?
I'm saying there'd be a lot of clearing done to be able to get in there and work. It would grow back eventually, but it would be quite a disturbance to replace the line in Green Gorge. And that's why it hasn't been done yet. I mean, it's just a staggering cost and just the impact on the environment things would look different. That's the bottom line.
Can the lines be put in a different place down Green Gorge?
Well, the problem is that particular system is a gravity system, and it's going to require a major rework of the sewer system in the Green Gorge area and above to be able to move the line out of Green Gorge. I mean, ultimately what happens, and really this is the only way this happens, is a lot of the homes in that area will wind up on what we call a low pressure pump system, because the gravity system, we just can't do it via gravity. So it just kind of gives you an idea one of the plans would be to convert a large number of the homes in that area to a low pressure or gravity, or potentially keep the gravity portions that are out of the gorge. We can line those and not have to dig them up, and that may be a solution in some areas, and have a more centralized pump station to catch the flow before it would actually go into the line in the gorge, and potentially be able to abandon the line in the gorge. That would be that is the engineering problem that we ultimately have to work through.
I have a question.
Okay.
About how many houses are you talking about? Like in that would be impacted?
Well, I don't want to throw out a number. There's about 1,500 customers on the sewer system in the signal system right now, roughly. If I throw out a number, it becomes set in stone. So I really don't want to throw out a number, but it would be, a significant number potentially, and a significant expense. And
May I add something, Vicki? We also need to keep it, this is the sewer system. We also have a lot of failed septic systems as well.
Yeah.
That were all built around the same time in a couple of neighborhoods. So the impact on the creeks isn't just those in the sewer systems. So this is it's a more complex repair than just what we're looking at here. And this is complex, by itself.
So true.
So if you look on the slide there, if you over where the star is and the potential where those overflows are, that one of the issues there is the lines aren't very deep. One of the manholes is only about 2 feet deep. So when we have one of these rain events, it doesn't take very long for it to hit to a level where it will come out the top of the manhole. So in addition to I&I removal work and potentially abandonment of some of the lines in favor of low pressure, we may have to have what we would call a relief pump station that redirects flow in the large rain events to bypass the system, the shallow parts of the system, and move it on down to a portion of the system that can take the additional flow. So that's another possibility that we're looking at. It all boils down to funding, to be honest. I mean, the reality is Signal is also competing with all the other service areas in the WWTA. So we have to allocate resources because, well, the consent decree effort, which we're about to enter into a consent decree with the federal government, with EPA over these overflows on Signal, as well as in other parts of the WWTA system, ultimately becomes roughly $240 million. That's our estimate over 20 years. Now that's an estimate over 20 years. So 15 years from now, what will the number be? I hope it's close to 240 because that's what we're budgeting, but it could be more and it could be less.
When you say, I'm looking at this new pump station, where is that located?
We have not actually cited the location.
That's just like an approximate.
Yes, it's not, we don't have the exact location picked out. It could be easily farther north, I guess, would be up that line somewhere. We have a lot of concepts right now that we're working through the economics of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
If we put that in, would we create during rainy times an issue at the treatment plant with more volume going there?
Well, potentially. The reality is the treatment plant is old, but it works pretty well generally when there's not a heavy rain event. So the goal would be to remove the I&I on top of the mountain to the point where we don't have as many issues at the treatment plant. The reality is I&I removal is difficult and expensive. It's hard to predict how much you actually remove. I wish I had better news than that, but that's reality.
Yeah.
So I guess we've been talking a lot about what's going on here with this slide, but we've got a couple of plant options for the plant. One is to upgrade the plant. That is currently the preferred alternative. But the other potential alternative is to close the plant and send the flow off signal to the city of Chattanooga system for treatment. Now, the reality is they are not willing to accept all the flow, the excess rainwater flow that is coming off the Signal Mountain system. So we still have to do I&I removal. So it's not just a situation where we can pass our problems downstream, so to speak. We have to do significant work on top of the mountain, regardless of whether or not we keep the plant or close the plant. And getting the flow from the current plant location to the city of Chattanooga system is also not an inexpensive proposition. The route that it has to go is, well, it will be a very expensive alternative as well. So there's not really a good, there's not an easy slam dunk solution to the Signal Mountain problems, nor are there to the other service areas in the WWTA.
Mike, in this is obviously complex, and I know there are no easy answers, or you guys would have probably just done them, but can you think of ways that as a town, speaking as a town, the council speaking as the governing body of the town, that we could work towards some sort of a win-win situation for the city of Chattanooga? Any ideas on what that might be, or could you at least think about that? And because it sounds like that's the solution. In particular, I know you guys got a setback when you weren't able to get the East Hamilton County plant going. That's still a hopeful option though for you, isn't it?
Well, I think ultimately there will be, right now, one wastewater plant serves the entire county with the exception of the small plant, Signal plant. The only other plant is Moxon Bend. I think eventually there will be another plant somewhere to serve the long-term needs. But right now, that location is in doubt, well, is in question, I guess, is the way to say that. Plus, you know, that plant was going to serve the northern part of the county. It wouldn't really make much difference to Red Bank or Signal Mountain.
Well, but it would take some pressure off of the Moccasin Bend plant, though.
Well, it's not so much the plant itself at Moxon Bend. It's more the transmission system getting it to the plant. That's part of the problem with just being able to pump you saw, I don't know, back on the previous slide, we go from, 400,000, 500,000 gallons a day to as much as 4.5 to 5 million, depending on the rain event. So it's the 5 million that the city would have an issue with, because, you know, they have their own I&I issues as well that they're working on. They have a consent decree also they've been working on for the last 7 years or so. So
is there any kind of a practical remediation of I&I that, you know, is seen in small towns? I mean, there have to be towns with old systems, you know, across the country that deal with this.
There are, and a lot of them, most are in the same boat that we're in. This is in no way unique to this area. Just the location of some of the lines on Signal Mountain are pretty unique, to be honest. But I suspect there are others, you know, elsewhere.
The I&I, is it mainly a creek problem, or is it a homes problem with old pipes that have leaks?
It is a combination of all of that. I mean, for an example, something a homeowner can do, you know, I can't tell you how many clean out caps we've come across who've been hit by a lawnmower, and you know, that just lets rainwater just flow into the sewer system when it rains. There are other times when people will have a place that rains not draining too well in their yard, and they'll figure out their sewer lines there, and they'll just pop the cap off, and that's exactly where it'll drain to.
Well,
Those are
having
homeowners can do.
having been a homeowner who's hit a clean out cap with a lawnmower myself, and said, why did they put the clean out cap 4 inches above where people are going to mow their grass?
Yes, I agree. It would be nice if every clean out cap was in a nice metal box at or below grade, so we wouldn't have these issues. There again, that's another expense that we have 30,000 customers in the WWTA system.
If a homeowner wanted to take that thing down 4 inches, could they cut it off with a hacksaw and put a new cap on it?
Well, we would prefer to be involved in that, because
Would you come and pay for it?
uh,
Would you consider that to be a problem that they've found? If
it is a problem, and that is something we have done in numerous properties, is repairing clean out caps and installing boxes. I'm not prepared to tell you I'm going to come to every house on Signal Mountain right now, but that is certainly part of a problem and a solution.
Mike, is there any, I mean, you guys started charging $8 extra per month, at least 12 years ago, maybe more. That's not doing the trick. Are you guys looking at raising that rate?
Well, the reality is a homeowner will pay, assuming a homeowner pays that $8 fee for 20 years, that comes up to about $1,960 if I've done my math right. Typically, a service line repair is a lot more than that. That is the issue that we have to deal with. Originally, the $8 fee was proposed, and this was well before my time, but it was proposed to be $23 or $24 if I remember right. I was working at the city at the time, but obviously that is pretty painful per month for the average customer.
Mike, if that $8 at this point, that basically covers the private service line. So if something happens, WWTA will come in and take care of it.
Yes.
It's not covering the cost of repairing, general repair and replacement of those lines. It's a monthly fee so that WWTA takes care of something that in reality, or at least initially, belonged to and was the responsibility of the homeowner. They would have to take care of fixing it and replacing it if something happened. Now WWTA will do that via that $8 a month fee.
Yes. In the city of Chattanooga, for example, you're responsible for your service line all the way from the house to the middle of the road, if that's where the sewer line connection is.
Just wanted to make that clear. It wasn't that amount was meant to finance the replacement of all those lines. It just helped cover the cost of taking care of issues when they arose, so that we were sure that happened.
Correct.
And one other thing, I guess it goes all the way back to maybe Charlie's first question, and then Dan talked about it, and we touched on it, but not, I don't think fully, in the transition from focus on the private service laterals and all of that. That's where all the work was initially. And then fairly recently, all these other issues were clarified, I guess. It became more evident where some of the major inflows were, and it wasn't in your average household lateral. It was in these lines that are in the creeks that tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of gallons of water are going into, and that's kind of shifted some of the focus. Is that fair?
Yes.
What did the lining of Green Gorge, when they put that green line on the inside of the pipe, did that solve some of that, or is that only solving the outflow issues?
It really doesn't solve much of the problem. So what happens, that's called slip lining.
Mm-hmm.
And what typically happens is that was somebody's bright idea once upon a time. I would not slip line anything at this point. Because what happens is you don't really seal off. You don't really fix the problem with slip lining. You have an issue where the lines terminate in the manhole, and you also have an issue where the lines connect to service lines. We call it the annular space. It is hard to seal the annular space, which is basically the space between the inner line and the outer line, off. And ultimately you wind up with the same problem, except you have a restricted pipe capacity. And also, modern method is called cured in place pipe, where you actually put a resin impregnated sop into the pipe and it adheres to the pipe wall and you don't have the annular space issue that you have with slip lining. However, you have a lot of lines that have been slip lined. You have to get those lines out somehow before you can go and line them using the new method. It's really unfortunate that slip lining took place, but it also happened in other parts of the WWTA system and the country, because at the time, thought that was what they needed to do to solve the problem.
I remember some years ago, Dick G used to maybe be on the board at WWTA or attended meetings on behalf of Signal Mountain. Boy, do you remember that? He used to always come into the planning commission meetings and update us.
Yes, Dick was the Signal Mountain representative. He is now a county appointee and is actually the chair of the WWTA board, and I sit on the board as Signal Mountain's representative.
Okay. How often does the board of WWTA meet?
We meet twice a month, basically. One first with a work session and then an actual board meeting. The next board meeting is next Wednesday.
Okay. I mean, you guys, the town council members, Susannah and Dan, probably have heard a lot of this in the past. I feel like, no offense, but you're bringing in this huge problem and setting it down on the table and saying, here it is. You know, I think we need to, in future meetings, talk about what we can do to try to help get a plan. Because I'm not seeing a plan, and no offense to you, Mike, but I mean, you know, there's this alternate, first possibility, the second one to close the plant. You know, where is that? Where do we stand? I think we just need to kind of have a plan. And maybe there was one before I came on the town council, but.
Well, honestly, I'm not sure what the plan was before.
Yeah.
However,
So
we are now determining the best plan is what we're trying to do right now.
Right. So I think we need to keep having regular updates of what's going on. And maybe as a town council during our meetings, we can help decide what we think should be a good plan. I mean, I'm assuming you'd like input from the towns that you're servicing, right?
Yes.
Okay. Is this the end of, I mean, is this slide the last slide you had? Did you have more you needed to talk to us about?
Well, we had a few more slides just basically talking about where we're at in the plan. We're looking at some permitting issues at the plant, and really the outcome of the permitting discussion with TDEC will really make the determination on whether or not we attempt to keep the plant in service or abandon it and move forward with the City of Chattanooga connection.
And I think if I can just on that, and I feel the need to defend Mike a bit.
I'm not attacking Mike. I'm just
no. I know, but
the problem that we were saying. Here it is.
He's very gracious and professional, and I just want to make it clear there is a lot of work going into formulating a plan now. A lot of the problem, just like he mentioned, what the plan's gonna be is largely dictated or will be dictated by what WWTA will and won't be allowed to do through permitting and what TDEC and EPA will be comfortable with. So they're at a bit of a disadvantage in terms of creating a plan, because it's not just up to them to determine what that plan is going to be. There's a lot of players in the mix. So, and I didn't mean that you were attacking or anything. I just felt like it's important to point that out, that there are a lot of hands on the wheel, and they're determining to some extent what direction this goes in beyond just Mike and his crew.
Well, I sort of have this analogy in my mind where it's like you look at all of this like a sick patient, and you're trying to make a diagnosis, and it's gonna, you're gonna find a lot of ugly stuff in there. And in full transparency, I guess you just gotta throw it all out there. I mean, it's pretty informative for me. And I think the pictures and the maps that you're showing us, it's like I've always known that we've had these problems, and I've known that septic is, obviously an undesirable method that's used, and we discourage it highly. And now, we've got all these sewer issues, and I think it's a little bit just kind of overwhelming to look at the level of potential pollution, in our waterways, and the way that things are pumped out and treated. And I mean, this is a huge issue.
I won't disagree.
And I have one more question. One thing, just listening to everybody, I'm wondering, it sounds like there's a lot of bureaucracy going on from everything that you're having to wade through so much red tape and challenges. I would be interested in learning about what we can do to support you in being able to move through some of that. If we can get behind you in certain areas, if there's things you need, I would be really thankful to know, so that we could have a direction that we would be able to pinpoint and focus on what would be our first best thing to support you with, and then second and third, et cetera.
I think one of the things that will really help is, I don't know, how can I put this? Generally, sewer issues are local. As long as you're not having a problem at your house, I won't say you, let me just say generally, people aren't too worried about the sewer system until it actually backs up in their house. And typically these overflows, they occur off in the woods somewhere where, not really causing a problem for somebody who lives up on top of the hill there. However, the ultimate solution will affect them, because if we have to come in and abandon the gravity system and all these low pressure pumps at each house, that's going to be a little bit intrusive and probably not well received, I would guess, in some cases. The biggest help we would have is just the whole education of the magnitude of our problem. And, just the fact that there's not an easy fix.
Yeah, I think we're hearing the magnitude, that's for sure. And the fact that it's not easy to fix. So I appreciate you giving this presentation. Those who are watching, those residents who are watching are seeing this, maybe for the first time.
I need to correct myself a little bit. I said next Wednesday. Actually, the board meeting is this Wednesday, the 16th.
Okay. Okay, does anybody have any questions?
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
so what's the possibility that we could combine all of our problems together within all these different municipalities and like come up with one giant price tag to figure out what it's going to cost to fix everything and
Well,
try to get the federal government to partner with us and the state of Tennessee and the county.
so that's exactly what we are doing. That $240 million price tag is our best estimate of the price tag, not to fix everything, but to make it, that by no means, we won't have a shining new sewer system throughout the county. If we spend $240 million, you probably have to quadruple that number to get that.
Yeah.
That is really what we are doing. We are formulating our plans. We are looking for funding. And like I said earlier, the funding typically comes, it doesn't come in grants in large chunks. Oh, we might get a couple $100,000 here, a couple $100,000 there, but we don't get grants in the millions. It comes in the form of low interest loans that the ratepayers have to pay back over time. I wish it was like the 70s where Clean Water Act money just flowed from a fountain. It doesn't happen anymore. I'd be in line if it did.
Well, that's kind of frustrating, isn't it?
Yes.
And it's also, as unpleasant as it is to think about sewage, it's damn important in all of our qualities of life collectively. And it's something that if it's not addressed is only going to get worse.
Well, the reality is we will have to have we have to have a plan of continuous improvement past the potential 20 years of the life of the consent decree. You know, we talk about a 20-year consent decree. The reality is it will last forever. Otherwise, you wind up with another consent decree.
Yeah.
We have not been taking care of sewer infrastructure like
That's
we should have, because it's in the ground and nobody wants to talk about it or think about it, and definitely not pay for it.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Mike, does anybody else have any questions they want to address now?
Oh, one more question, just if, let's say we were able to figure out some of these solutions, and we fix the kind of current households on sewer. I know in the past and currently there's an issue with runoff from all the septic systems for basically the other half of town residents. Would there be an ability to, at that point, get those houses on sewer? Or is that part of the plan? If they did, would our main be able to handle it?
Well, at this point, our goal is to fix what we have, and we don't really have big plans for expansions into the other areas, just because it's a monumental task just fixing what we have. But if we were able to do that, if we can get a good bit of this I&I out, the mains are sized appropriately for additional, I don't know, I'm not sure the total number of houses on Signal. I just know the number of customers we have, but
in the town, you would have to almost double from 50.
yeah, I'm going to say we're probably covering half the town. So what, 3,500 houses roughly, maybe in the town. That would not be a particular difficulty for the lines without the I&I issue, or the plant without the I&I issue.
Just to add one general note, as you're talking about it, it's nice to hear everybody, talking about this at higher levels. These intergenerational equity kinds of issues are burdens on our children, on the people who are going to live here after we do. They take 10 to 15 years to fix. None of these are going to be fast answers. And so I think we do have to think of these large scale projects, but they hurt and they benefit people down the road. That's why it makes sense for them to be low interest loans, so that they're paid for over time by, not necessarily multiple generations, but over 20, 30 years down the road. So as we talk about these things, that's the kind of funding that you're talking about, right, Mike?
Right. Yeah, they're typically 20. They've even talked about going to 30-year loans, and they have, you know, a much lower interest rate than your typical GO bond or something like that.
Well, thanks. I hope we can get some, periodic updates. Maybe that's what you normally do for us. I appreciate you coming to this meeting, and hopefully we can have you come to some more.
Well, ultimately, as work begins up there, we will have public meetings and more input. I mean, right now, obviously, the pandemic, it makes public meetings difficult, but we'll have more of those as it moves forward.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mike.
Thanks,
And
Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
All right.
Scott.
Okay. Let's move on to our next agenda item, resolutions. I understand this one. I'm supposed to read these into the record myself.
And
So
just
first,
the heading is all that you need to read on each of them.
right. All right. So we have 3 resolutions. I'll read the first one. A resolution by the Signal Mountain Town Council adopting bank form resolutions for signatures on behalf of the town.
I'll do a motion to approve.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
All right. Any discussion? Can we get a vote?
Mayor Susannah Murdock,
Yes.
Councilmember Vicki Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Andrew Gardner,
Yes.
Councilmember Dan Landrum,
Yes.
Mayor Charles Poss.
Yes. Okay, thank you. The next resolution is a resolution appointing Vicki Anderson as a member of the Town of Signal Mountain Library Board. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? Okay, can we have a vote?
Vice Mayor Susannah Murdock,
Yes.
Councilmember Vicki Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Andrew Gardner,
Yes.
Councilmember Dan Landrum,
Yes.
Mayor Charles Poss.
Yes. I guess that passes unanimously. On to the next resolution, the third of 3. This is a resolution appointing Charles Poss and Susannah Murdock as members of the Town of Signal Mountain Municipal Planning Commission.
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Can the resolution correct that little typo where it says as a members? Okay, do we have a vote? Any discussion first? Any discussion?
Carol, we can't hear you.
You need to make that as a motion and get a second and vote on it.
All right.
I'm sorry, but it's in the caption that you were given, and
Yeah.
it's my understanding that's what we would have to do.
All right. Well,
Should I
have a
re-motion then,
motion.
Carol, or?
Yes, please.
Okay. A
And
motion.
I believe Councilmember Anderson made the
Oh,
original.
yeah, you're right, you're right. That's
So
right.
I re-motion do that and also to correct the typo in the top part. And to approve.
do we have a second?
Second.
All right, just a moment. And now Councilmember I'm sorry, I don't even remember who made the second call there.
I think I did.
Councilmember Gardner, you need to also second her
I
revision.
second the revision.
Sorry, I know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any discussion on that? All right, can we have a roll call vote?
Vice Mayor Susannah Murdock,
Yes.
Councilmember Vicki Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Andrew Gardner,
Yes.
Councilmember Dan Landrum,
Yes.
Mayor Charles Poss.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There are no ordinances, so we'll move on to discussion. It's getting late. Let's try to speed things up. I first wanted to, I think that some of these discussion items seem to be more managers' reports. Am I correct on that? Maybe they're
Well,
otherwise.
do you mind, Boyd? I was the one who asked for the TDEC report and stream conditions to be on here.
Oh, okay.
As well as the WWTA, because the new council needs to know what we're dealing with. The stormwater report is something that isn't, at least in my 4-something years on here, is not something that we've had. But Charlie, you'll be signing these as mayor, the report that has to go in. And it's rarely reported on. It's relatively complex, and it's not something that we should gloss over quickly. We need to know the condition of our streams. That's why many of us live here. So that's why that one's here. And the same thing I asked prior, you could move them and not do them tonight if you wanted to, the fire and police salary surveys. But that is an emergent problem that's going to bite us if we don't pay attention to it. If we wait till budget time, we'll wish we hadn't. That's, yeah. And then, so that's why those are there. But
I don't know anything about the fire and police salary surveys, but is that something that the personnel committee can take a look at and then we have a discussion on it?
That is the intent at this point. The fire and police departments, the chiefs have done some salary surveys locally. Those have been compiled, but we also participated in a professional survey through Burris Thompson that would give us a look at the state as a whole. I have polled the personnel committee on availability and was hoping to have a meeting ahead of their January meeting to address this, but we haven't gotten that report yet from Burris Thompson. So I've asked about when we could expect that. So that was on because it was intended to be a discussion and action item, but really the intent was just to give you that update on that item. So it will go to personnel committee when we get that additional report.
Okay, sounds good. I remember, Dan, that you talked about the salary issue in your State of the Town address last year, or this year, beginning of the year. So why don't we do that? Why don't we have this go to the personnel committee and then we can have a report on it once they have a chance to take a look at it. So let's kind of, we went out of order, but we can go to an update on the Old Town the Old Town Sidewalk project.
If possible, if we could postpone that one. Loretta was on slate to do that and she was not able to be at the meeting.
Okay, all right. Then the stormwater, if that's going to be a lengthy discussion, Dan, maybe we can, well, all of them are kind of lengthy. Let's go out of order a little bit, and the town website might not be lengthy, so let's get that one out of the way. If we can get a discussion about the town website.
Sure. We have met with all the department heads and basically done a survey of needs. And it's interesting that most of the replies, and Sam, you're welcome to weigh in here anytime you've handled a lot of this. Most of the replies from the departments related to what they needed to be able to do for citizens. It wasn't just what they would like to see in the website. It was about making it more functional for the user, which is pretty much what I expected. But they did look at this heavily with an eye towards what the citizens need and what we need the website to do. So Sam's compiled that, and if you want to give just a quick rundown on that, Sam, largely it was about functionality and the departments being able to manage their portion of the page independently so that it was more reactive and they could get information up more quickly, being able to facilitate online payments and stuff like that. But if you want to kind of run over that additionally, Sam.
Sure, not a whole lot more to add other than that. The main thing, as Bo was saying, is functionality both for the user, being citizens or anyone who's interested in getting information from that website, as well as functionality for our staff on this side, being able to quickly and easily get that information onto the site so it's accessible to the citizens. Obviously aesthetics is something that you want to have in a website. You want it to look good, but mainly for function purpose. I will not pretend to be an expert on web design or anything of that nature, but the main thing, again, like Bo was saying too, was online payments. The departments pretty much have a great idea of what individuals are looking for in their individual departments. And so they want to be able to get those front and center where people can access those frequently asked question type things as quickly as possible.
And
So not a whole lot more to add on top of what you already said.
Another piece of this that we'll discuss, and I wanted to mention that having heard back from everyone, unless there's been a change in schedules, we'll hold a water utility board meeting next Monday. And one of the things that we'll touch on is a change in the water department's billing software, potential change, which would have with it a component of online payment and all of that, which may serve to connect with what we're trying to do in a broader sense throughout the departments. So that's another piece of the puzzle that we're hoping may fall into place. If we can find something that works well with their billing software, then it can be expanded for use throughout the town. So that's where we are with that. A couple of the pages that we looked at, and I think I may have mentioned this, Collegedale and Cleveland, as far as functionality and ease of use, were two of the ones that we've looked at. If you guys want to kind of take a look at those, but neither of those really seem to have a real good online payment option with them either. So. But that may give you a little better idea of what, from the department's perspective, what we might want to gravitate towards.
What kind of input have we or can we get from the town citizens about the website?
We haven't done anything formally, but I think we've gotten a pretty good idea of what they need. And largely relates to the things that we've talked about. A searchable site that's more intuitive, that you can find what you're looking for more easily. Online payment is a big one that we hear. But we haven't done a formal query of the citizens for input directly, but we have over time had a good bit of input about those particular issues, and they're pretty consistent in what comes up.
Maybe we could do that now. If anybody's watching and wants to have some input, maybe they can contact someone, whoever's. Sam, are you in charge of the website project?
Somewhat. I would be absolutely happy to be that contact person. And you can find my contact info. I'm the person that you email if you would like to speak to council. So all my contact info should be in all the publications for this meeting. It's sguin@signalmountaintn.gov.
Yeah. Okay. So if anybody has any input they'd like to provide, they can email Sam and provide that. Does anybody else have any questions about the town website?
Are there, with our current website, are there limitations on keeping it updated? I guess, does it take time to do it? It's a time-consuming process, and are there limitations on like file sizes and documents we're able to put on there?
I think it's probably the best way to put it is it's cumbersome.
Yeah.
And it is very centralized, and I do like the idea of the departments being able to do what they need to do on their portions of the website. If we can trust them to carry guns and take care of people when they're having a heart attack and fix roads the way they're supposed to be and do the things that we trust our people to do, I think we can trust them to take care of, help us take care of the website and be more responsive and again, kind of reactive in that when things happen, we get something up quickly. And that's difficult to do with the way we're set up now.
Yeah, I can say that there's one thing that I think, it'd be nice to have is the ability to search. Like if the town council talks about things and it's in one of the meetings, the minutes, it'd be nice to be able to search for a topic that we talked about at some point in time, but you just don't know when. So you go in there and type something up and it brings up a list of meetings where that word appears. I'm assuming that would be something that could be done when this is updated.
Yes.
As a citizen, that's my request. Sam.
Absolutely.
Charlie, just to make
Something
it
we
easier,
definitely-
you can do that right now by doing a Google site search. And I won't go into that, but just do a quick search for a Google site search.
Yeah, but the actual minutes are PDF'd without the text. They're like a photo, so you can't search the text in them.
Right. So So everything needs to be OCR'd, no doubt. I had a question, Boyd. Are you looking into what this will mean as far as untangling from local government for the website? Just what our obligation is with them?
Yes, and really trying to find an example of what we think would work for us. One of the main objectives there was try to identify a service that we could start with. Who does Dale's website, who's doing Cleveland's, and be able to go to them and talk to them about what they need to do. I don't.
Cleveland is local government.
That's not what's listed on their website.
Or maybe Bradley County is local government. One of the sample sites that local government gave me was either Cleveland or Bradley County. I thought it was Cleveland because I think I remember a picture of their website. The local government has like different divisions. And yeah.
Okay. Well,
maybe they changed though. I wouldn't blame them if they did.
And I have had a citizen who is in the field offer some assistance as well. So again, working on nailing down exactly what we want it to be, and in the process identifying sources to go to for proposals.
So we are
Just
looking
look-
at vendors other than local government.
Yes.
There are several that cater specifically to local governments. And so, and I just looked, Cleveland is actually hosted by a company called Civic Plus, and Collegedale, I believe, is a company called Revive. So there are probably multiple options. I've looked briefly at a couple of those, but I'm sure there are many options that cater specifically to government websites. And so they would be able to give us a great idea of things we may not have even thought about.
Do we have a timeline when we want to wrap it up and move toward finalizing the changes?
I think I would defer to a company that's going to help us do that to tell us what a realistic timeline would be and what would be required of us. I simply don't know. That's frankly some of the challenge in this when you're dealing with trying to do a project like this. When you're not familiar with the field, you tend to take a rather gradual and cautious approach, and that's kind of where we're working through, trying to find, again, nail down what it is we need, and then through that process identify good sources for the service, and then we will speak to the folks that are the expert in the field to help us pull it off.
Okay, well, let's maybe by our next meeting we can Sam can identify some targets of people or companies that'll do the website for us, and maybe we can move forward that way. All right, how about we can talk about the stormwater TDEC reporting and stream conditions. Dan, did you want to take the lead on that? No.
No, Sam. I think Cliff is going to give us.
I'll actually bring in Cliff Fight in. He's our stormwater director. So
All right, great.
May take a moment for him to connect.
Yeah, while Cliff is coming in, notice if you remember back to the audit that Brian gave us, the overage in our stormwater department.
Right.
Remember that?
Money over it. What do you mean, Dan?
We were in the red, right?
Boyd.
Yeah, I wouldn't term it necessarily overage. We are spending more than we're bringing in.
Oh, yeah.
For many years, that was not the case. We built up fund balance over the last few years. We've spent a lot of time and effort to identify major projects that need to be done, and we're now doing those projects, and that explains why the expenditures in the department have gone up significantly. We're fixing what needs to be done. And it's like Mike mentioned that, whether they're water lines or the sewer lines or the stormwater infrastructure, they're in the ground and nobody wants to deal with them. But ultimately, at some point, you have to, and that's what we started to do. So it is something we're going to need to look at in terms of continuing to fund the infrastructure repairs that need to be done.
Okay.
Right, and as Sam still looks like he's still working on Cliff. Stormwater is stormwater getting into the system often. So our stormwater department, we don't have a sewer department, but stormwater affects our issues that we're having with WWTA.
So yeah, I was going to say, if we fix our stormwater problems, that ought to reduce that 5 million gallon runoff during peak time.
Right.
Cliff,
Cliff?
Yes.
welcome to the meeting. Can you state your name and address?
Yes,
Who did
I'm
you got
Cliff
to?
Wright, Stormwater Manager for the town of Signal Mountain. So my address is the town of Signal Mountain.
Okay, thank you.
Anyway, I'm glad Dan spoke up earlier and said that we needed to hear about the conditions of our streams. And I listened to what all Mike Patrick had to say earlier too. And as you all were just talking about, WWTA, along with Hamilton County's groundwater protection, as far as septic tanks go, septic systems go, that they all play a very important part on the mountain as far as our streams go. If we want to talk about stream conditions first here, and I'll try to make all this as fast as I can. But we have 4 streams on the mountain that are listed as impaired with TDEC. Of those 4 streams, 3 of them are impaired because of E. coli. And that would be Shoal Creek, which is where Green Gorge is. A lot of those pictures that Mike Patrick showed earlier were from Green Gorge area. Lots of areas where we do get lots of infiltration into the sewer system. We get lots of exfiltration out of the sewer system into the creeks. So that's the reason we have high E. coli numbers, and that's the reason Shoal Creek is listed as impaired. B Branch is another one of our creeks on the mountain that's listed as impaired for E. coli. We have sewer systems that run right down the bottom of B Branch ravine, so to speak. Very much the same situation as we have along Shoal Creek. So it's on the same list. Short Creek is listed for impairment with E. coli. And Short Creek however, has got a watershed area that's more septic systems than it is sewer. So, and both Shoal Creek and B Branch, along with Short Creek, they all have some sewer and some septic systems. So it's a combination of both that's affecting our streams on the mountain. We've just finished, well, let me say this first. The other stream that we have that's impaired is Frudenberg. It's impaired from acid mine drainage. It's a totally different animal in that area. B Branch itself is impaired not only for E. coli, but also for sedimentation, which is causing us to have to do testing every permit cycle with TDEC on our macroinvertebrates and our water species that are in B Branch also, to see that we're trying to improve it. We've not been able to do much improvement on B Branch either. As far as the streams that are impaired for E. coli, we just finished our regular monitoring, water sampling of those streams. We got those results back, and those are being submitted to TDEC right now. It appears that some of our numbers might have gone down since the last time we did our monitoring. We only do this once every 5 years. But since the last time we did our monitoring, it appears that those numbers have come down a little bit. We still get very high numbers depending on which day we do our monitoring. Some of this ties right back into what Mike Patrick said earlier. If we get one of these large rain events, there seems to be very high numbers of E. coli in the streams right after that. It doesn't matter if it's on a septic area or if it's on a sewer area. These large rain events seem to wash out our septic systems as well as our sewer pipes. So just to reiterate the importance of what Mike Patrick had to say, fixing our sewer system is still rating very high, in my opinion, as something that we need to be looking at on Signal Mountain. And I know that's kind of a WWTA type thing, but anything that we can do to help them out, I would be more than happy to do. Same thing with groundwater protection and all of our septic systems. It's hard. It's very, very hard to come up with a fix for a septic system on the mountain. The mountain's not an ideal place to be installing septic systems. We have lots of bedrock shallow under the ground. It causes these septic systems to fail in varying degrees. And the further problem we have with that is identifying specific septic systems that are failing. We get septic systems that fail from time to time, and they fail catastrophically. You have a yard that's all mushy and smelly and everything else. We understand that one needs some work. But I think we also get a lot of E. coli in our streams based on a lot of septic systems just failing to a small degree. And they all build up over time and become an effect on our streams.
When we have a septic system that's failing, is that the homeowner's responsibility to fix, or does the town fix that, or WWTA? Who fixes that?
If it's a septic system, WWTA doesn't have anything to do with it. That's all Hamilton County's Groundwater Protection Department. And they're charged with overseeing all these septic systems throughout the county, not just on Signal Mountain, but typically when someone has a catastrophic failure of their septic system, that's when we talk with groundwater protection, and groundwater protection comes up and basically tells them what they have to do. That's kind of out of our hands as a stormwater department also.
It's the homeowner's responsibility.
Right.
It does become the homeowner's responsibility, yes.
I know that firsthand. Well, we didn't have anybody come up tell us that.
Well, how do we identify these problems then?
Where we've
Small problem, like you mentioned.
Well, within the stormwater department, we've got people out looking at sites all the time, construction sites and things like that. And sometimes we find them. Sometimes the residents report these smaller problems themselves. A lot of times the smaller problems don't ever even get discovered. It's not until they become a big problem that that a homeowner even knows they have a problem, and they start calling us. It's too late by then.
Okay.
So we're getting a lot of E. coli in our streams, not only from sewers, but from septic systems too.
We have had some instances where the world of county groundwater protection and WWTA have kind of commingled, in that when there's a significant failure of a system and there is proximity to a sewer, WWTA can sometimes have latitude to allow an emergency connection and resolve the issue. And in one area off of Timberlinks, they basically have altered the system so that it would allow eventually multiple connections, but it was all brought about by one, as Cliff put it, catastrophic failure of a septic system that these folks had no other alternative. So when it comes down to it, it's not always just you've got to figure out and deal with it. Some of the involved entities do come together and look for other solutions if possible.
Okay.
Yeah, it's extremely important for us to be able to work with Hamilton County Groundwater Protection and also with WWTA every time we find one of these situations. We found sewer breaks. We found, as Mike Patrick showed earlier, he had a diagram that showed cracked pipes and stuff. And some of those pictures, I've walked down and seen most of those pictures that he showed. And we've talked with WWTA and said, hey, how's this fit into the plan? Where do we see it? And unfortunately, it is a much more complicated fix that takes much more time than what we really would like for it to take. And there's just nothing we can do about that.
So Cliff, I just want to make sure you say the numbers have come down, you mean improved? And if so,
Yes.
what do you attribute the improvement to?
Some of what I would attribute that to is we have had work done on several septic systems all across town, not just in the Shoal Creek area, but out in Middle Creek areas and other places. Some of these septic systems that are having work done, they're converting a gravity system over to a pump system and creating new field lines, and whenever they can, we're fixing these at a pretty good rate right now. And that's all homeowners' responsibility again. But it depends on how quickly we can catch these problems and get them reported and get something done about them.
Cliff, I know there's been some work done to try to get some grants for homeowners who maybe would like to repair a septic system but don't have the money. Do you know the status of any of those?
I do not. I'm not aware of any grants out there for homeowners to do that kind of work with.
I thought there were some watershed grants that would help with that. I need to check with Mary Beth Sutton.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is maybe the 319 grants.
Yes.
And you have to do lots of testing, lots of monitoring, you have to have a lot of supporting evidence to say, hey, this is what needs to be done in this area. And typically those grants are not going to be for just an individual homeowner. They'll be for like a local government like ourselves.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else have any questions of Cliff or comments?
Yeah, I'd like, Cliff, you have we've talked about sewer systems, WWTA stuff, and we've talked about homeowner stuff, but then there's a lot of runoff that's in our ditches and those kinds of issues. Where are we on those kinds of things? And are you staffed properly to, I know like Boyd said a few minutes ago, you guys are working to catch up on, and that's why we've spent more money trying to get those projects done. Does it look like an attainable goal?
Yes. I made a list earlier today just for tonight's meeting. We've accomplished a lot of different projects as far as dealing with water quantity instead of quality. We've replaced a lot of drain pipes from Lancaster Road, Hampton Road. We've done some on Windtree Drive. We did a large piping project along the edge of Shackleford Ridge here not long ago. We've got a couple of projects that are underway right now, one at Fern Trail and one at Mississippi Avenue. Those should be wrapping up here fairly soon. But we still have a lengthy list of projects that we need to deal with as far as drain pipes that are collapsing, causing problems with our roads, things like that. In a way, we're much in the same boat that Mike Patrick is with WWTA. We've got a lot of projects we need to do, and we have very little money to do it with.
But we do have a plan in place to get these things accomplished, I take.
The plan that you speak of, we just went through a process with MTAS and did a 5-year capital improvement plan. Some of that has already been presented to council prior to you guys, I guess. That plan pretty much had almost $300,000 a year in expenditures in it, which our revenues right now don't support that kind of spending.
So do we need a different plan?
No, we need a fee increase.
I mean, our job as council members is to deal with the things that affect the quality of life of Signal Mountain residents, and the quality of our creeks, the quality of water. All of these things are major life issues, and we can't just say, well, we can't I mean, you can't afford to do everything. I'll use my example of a water slide again. We're not going to put a water slide in, but some of these basic kinds of things are going to have to address. And that's one of the reasons I wanted Cliff to be here, because it's, we hear it in the manager's report, but these guys are in the field every day. They're working on these problems and they see how to fix them, and they're frustrated because council has to allocate the money in order to fix these things. And it either has to come from fees or it has to come out of the surplus.
With the minimal improvement we saw this 5-year period, if you extrapolate that, how long would it take us to get to where we ideally want to be?
I'm not sure you can extrapolate that completely. I think, we can say that some of that improvement was due to some septic systems being repaired, but all of our septic systems can't be repaired. We have lots that are too small. There's no extra land to put another set of field lines in on. We run into a lot of other problems also. When we start talking about septic systems on Signal Mountain and the types of land that we have, you get quickly into the discussion that was had with Mike Patrick earlier. When can we extend sewer systems out to these areas? And that might not be something that's in the plans for quite some time.
Yeah.
So
one of the things that's unique about, and we have this discussion at WWTA, there's completely different set of terminology, same terminology, but different definitions. In the northern part of the county, when you talk about improving the sewer system so that you can have growth, you're talking about more homes and more businesses and all of that. For Signal Mountain, when you talk about improving the sewer system so you can have growth, you simply want to grow the number of customers on the system because you're converting existing homes from septic to sewer. So it's a whole different end game, but the challenge is the same. But when you talk about growth for Signal Mountain and sewers, it's a matter of creating capacity so that we can add additional customers to the system. And those customers are ones that already exist and are on an antiquated and failing septic system.
we would like to have a bigger percentage of the residents on Signal Mountain on sewer.
Yeah.
Well, that's something that we kind of briefly touched on with Mike Patrick, and maybe something that can be part of a plan for the future. All right, anything else on this topic? All right, hey Cliff, thanks for taking the time to come here. We appreciate it.
More than happy to do that. And I'll say this: we did just go through an audit with TDEC of our MS4 program. And in the interest of time this evening, I'll just say that I'll be more than happy to come back when we get those audit reports in and share with you guys again.
Yeah, I'd like that. Just I guess when you get them in, let Boyd know, and Boyd can put it on the agenda for you to come and talk to us. Thank you.
Sounds great.
All right.
Thanks, Cliff.
Thank you.
Okay, the next, so we're tabling the update on the sidewalk project because Loretta's not here. We'll table the fire and police salary surveys to have the personnel committee look at them. We have the committee liaison guidelines and the board commission committee appointments, but we've made the committee appointments, the board appointments, except for the transportation planning organization.
This would refer to the actual committee appointments. You should have received.
Oh, right. We got some resumes from people that were part of the packet. Not resumes, applications. All of them had resumes. And we do need to fill some positions, but probably nobody really has had a chance to talk to anybody that applied. I remember when I was appointed to the Planning Commission, at least 3 of the members of the town council called me and gave me a little brief interview about, things that were relevant. And I think before we, vote on these people that applied, it might be a good idea for us to have that opportunity to call them and talk to them if we feel it's necessary. So rather than voting on these people today, why don't we take the time between now and our next meeting to interview those who you feel like you want to interview, and so you have an idea of how you might want to vote. Is that fair enough?
I will say that we have vacant seats for, I believe, every application received, with one exception. So it's not as though we're having to make decisions of one person or another.
Well, that is true. But some of these people mentioned that they might want to be on more than one, or, consider being on more than one committee or board. And I'm guessing that nobody's you may know some of these people personally. And, if you do, you don't have to interview them, but I'm guessing that some people might want to talk to these people before they vote to put them on a particular board or committee.
Yeah, fair enough.
If anybody has a problem with that, we can deal with it. I think it'd be a good idea to have that opportunity though first. So why don't we plan to and in the meantime, if anybody else submits an application, hopefully we can get it right away and add that person to the list. I don't know if there's a cutoff for applications for these board positions. We do need more people to apply because I think we don't have enough to fill all the positions. But anyway, let's plan the next meeting to between now and then to talk to anybody you want to talk to, and then we'll vote on these people the next meeting. Which brings us to the committee liaison guidelines, which I think is important. I know Dan had addressed this at one time during, I don't know when, but I saw the minutes of the meeting. I just don't remember when it was. It is important to have some better guidelines for the council liaisons, which we don't really have in our ordinance. I think Boyd had put something together. I put something together. They're both part of the packet. They both could be part of a proposed amendment to 2-106. So if anybody's got any comments, and also Elizabeth Baker had made comments and sent an email, I believe, to everyone. So hopefully everybody got a copy of her email and had a chance to read it. No, you didn't get that? I'm just going to look here and see if she got the correct email address, because she may not have. And I may not be able, oh, here it is.
I received it.
Okay.
Just to
go ahead.
Go ahead. Let me check something here.
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't show on my email who it went to. So I don't know who it went to, but I got it. Vicki got it. Some other people may have gotten it. You guys want to talk about this now? Andrew's got something.
No, never mind. I'm incorrect about what I was about to say.
Okay. So I think it's important for us to do this, to make some clarification on liaisons. And I think the the main thing, and we can all talk about whether we agree or not, is that the liaison's role, other than if it's outlined by a superior law like what's the planning commission, the liaison's role is really just to be there as an observer and not to deliberate or participate in that way, is deliberate in the meetings on the decisions and not to vote in the decisions. I think that's what a liaison does. A liaison basically would report back to the town council about what's going on, and then report to the committee about what the town council as a whole wants, not what that particular person wants. And I think some of the issues that Elizabeth pointed out with what Boyd, and I'm not criticizing what Boyd put together, but some of the issues she pointed out were that the liaison maybe took more of a role in like doing applications to fill the positions, takes the lead in filling the board vacancies and recruiting and reviewing applications, whereas that's more of a town council responsibility, not just that liaison's responsibility. We're really representing the town council, not just, it's not, our role to do things for the committees. We're really representing the town council as a whole. So does anybody have any comments? I'm talking too much here.
I like both proposed texts there. Certainly the first one, I guess Charlie is a little more detailed. And I like a lot of the specifics in it. It's just, to me, a style difference, and as well as like a few things maybe we just want to alter with Boyd's, like you mentioned, Charlie, if we wanted to go with a simpler text on it. That's my personal opinion on reading these.
Yeah, and what I put together doesn't have to be, the end result.
Yeah.
And that is tweaked if we use that, or even Boyd's part could be tweaked if we use that. So,
if I can just, to clarify the point that you made on the takes the lead in filling board vacancies and recruiting, reviewing applications. That's not meant that they're making the appointments. It's just that if someone who's a liaison to a particular board, if there's an opening, it would be that they would be more involved in recruiting people for that board, as opposed to a broader approach from all of the council members. One of the things that we've seen in the past is the lack of applications, and if someone who's involved in the board is familiar with the work they do more intimately, they're in a better position to recruit good candidates. That was the idea behind that.
Yeah, a good idea. What I did on that one, I kind of marked up both versions, but I just, instead of takes the lead, I wrote aids in filling board vacancies and recruiting. Just that, takes the lead sounds more like it's the council member's responsibility. I think was more of a reservation. Charlie, correct me if I'm wrong, that you have with it.
Yeah. I kind of think that it's everybody's responsibility to fill these positions. And I understand what Boyd's saying is that person's more familiar with what's going on, but really, like I'm on the planning commission, I shouldn't really be the one recruiter or the main recruiter for the planning commission. I think everybody really should recruit, or, if there is recruitment, or at least publicize, it should come from everybody on the town council, not just from one particular person, or I shouldn't take the lead over somebody else. I mean, if you guys haven't had enough time to review this stuff and make your notes and make comments about it, we can talk about it at our next meeting, but I think at some point we do need to get something accomplished here.
The difference between an informally written paragraph or two and something that is filled with shalls and shall nots can become quite complicated down the road. And I wonder if Harry's looked at them.
I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Charlie, that you did some research on this for best practices, and that's kind of where this, and Boyd as well, these ideas came from, and these aren't things that aren't present necessarily in other towns'
Right.
rules.
Yeah, I can't take credit for coming up with this stuff. I made revisions to something that's, like you said, a best practice, guidelines, that kind of thing. So I'm not that good.
Important thing about this to keep in mind with these too is that we as a collective body represent a lot of different constituencies of people. And so we need to draw on those constituencies of people that are within our communities to try and help, make sure that we have strong representation on these committees. To, just to promote diverse perspectives and kinds of feedback that people can give.
Yeah, I agree. Harry, have you had a chance to look these things over?
I looked them over for a few minutes this afternoon,
Okay.
but not in detail.
Okay, well, why don't we do this? If you can give it some more thought over the next few weeks until we have our next meeting, and then everybody else can do the same, and you can, take a red marker and mark up things. If you have some ideas of how to tweak one or the other and want to send it out as an email to everybody that we can put on the agenda to talk about at the next meeting, that would be good.
Sure.
I do think this is something that we need to get done soon, because these boards and committees are meeting, and we need to have some better structure than what we have now. And also, I noticed that this, I don't know that I remember which one it was. I'll have to look, but what the section talked about boards and commissions, and it didn't mention committees, but we have committees, and I think there's a slight difference between a commission and a committee. So I think we might want to amend our, whatever section that was I was referring to, and I'll find it, to add committees to the boards and commissions.
Charlie, let me ask you just a general question.
Okay.
The number 3, generally the council member liaison shall not attempt to influence the work or recommendations of the committee. More specifically, the council member shall not take part in committee's deliberations or discussions unless the committee requests the council members' participation in particular discussion in this situation. Council members are citizens too.
Right.
And council members are involved in the kinds of things that concern themselves and their families and the environment here and all those things. And I'm just, if we were talking about a military committee or something, huh?
It addresses that. In parenthetical, it says, in this situation, the council member must expressly state that he or she is speaking personally as a citizen and not for the entire council.
Right.
So the point of that is that, yeah, if you're sitting there and there's deliberations going on and somebody says, like I called Dave Cantrell about the BZA, since I've been appointed to the BZA and he's the head of the BZA. And I, just asked him what's going on with the BZA. And we were talking about things, and he said, we ask you for your opinion. I think what it would be is, my opinion would be as a citizen, because I can't have discussions about what the town council wants as part of the meeting. But I can certainly participate in the meeting as a citizen, and I would just have to say that this is my opinion as a citizen, not as a town council member.
Sure, but I think that's a given every time we open our mouths, because that's the way our town government works. The council speaks for the council. We speak for ourselves as individuals.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess the difference, Dan, is we haven't been, when we're serving as a liaison, we haven't been picked to be on that particular board as a representative of the citizens. And we're trying, I guess, not to use this as a free wave that we get to all be on these boards. These boards are for the citizens to help inform us of what the desires of the citizens are, not for us to be another participant citizen on the board.
But okay.
More of an information, the way I look at it is we're an information conduit.
Yeah, but sometimes we are.
Council.
I don't see anything wrong with having that kind of language in there. I mean, I think it kind of creates just another layer of transparency, which is not a bad thing necessarily. I mean, I don't think anytime you open your mouth, you have to say that this is what I think. And by the way, I'm just right now as a private citizen and not as my role, but there's an inherent kind of, I mean, it's
What
not
it
like
says,
authority, but it's sort of an inferred, level of insider knowledge as to what's going on, with town government or whatever. So just having that language in there to kind of draw that distinction isn't a bad thing necessarily. I don't think so.
Well, I wonder if we were to switch it up, because I think what Dan was saying is that most of the time when he's participating in a meeting, that's a committee or a board, he's speaking for himself. So would it flip if we said that a town council member must share before they speak as a town council member rather than as a citizen? So instead of every time we have an idea as a citizen in a committee or board that we're speaking for, that it's a given that that's what we're doing, unless we say deliberately that this is me speaking as a representative of the town council. So if we flip it, I don't know if that would help. In my head, that would make sense and save time.
Right.
To me, the reason for the rule and the guidance and these best practices that it is, we're ultimately as council members, we're looking for recommendations from the citizens, not from ourselves. We know what our own opinion is, and ultimately we're going to vote on that opinion provided by the committee or the board. And if we're influencing that decision with our own opinion already, then it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. We influence the decision we make that makes recommendation A, that's what we believed in the first place. And then it comes to us, so what's the point of the board or the committee? We're not really attempting to hear a better, more diverse group of citizens than the five of us.
Andrew, I know.
That's just my opinion.
I get where you're coming from, but that assumes ill will on the part of the person who's participating in a meeting. And they might want to just—
It doesn't assume ill will.
It assumes that they're trying to influence something as opposed to participate and learn and ask questions and find out what the direction of the committee is. And these are advisory boards, remember that. Our committees don't make decisions for the council, they're advisory boards. And so we need to ask questions, sometimes as council members, sometimes where one committee is working on something and it influences another.
But I don't see where the proposed language suggests you can ask
No, it
questions.
doesn't. I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that. My point is that it's the shalls and shall nots.
Mhm.
Add a formality that probably isn't necessary in boards and committees.
Yeah, I think that when I think of a liaison, I think of somebody who's just there to observe and provide some general guidance, but not be, I mean, I don't think the idea is that we're members of the deliberating body on these committees and boards. We're there as observers mainly to, to keep them, maybe to keep them on track as to what the town council has directed them to do, and to bring back questions to the town council that they may have. But we've put together these committees and boards and commissions to do a particular task. And as the town council liaison, we're not really a part of that committee or board or commission. The citizens that we appoint to those are. We're just there to observe and make sure it's being guided in a direction that the town council wants. So that's why, our first role is not to be somebody who participates in deliberations and discussions, but our first role is to observe and only pipe in when we need to set some guidance and direction from the town council. And our second role would be as citizens to make comments and participate, but as citizens, not as the liaison. So that's why, that's why when Vicki's point is that maybe we're just assuming that everything we say is going to be as a citizen unless we say otherwise, I think it should be the reverse, that everything we say, we need to clarify that if we say anything, it's as a citizen and not as a town council member.
I think that's pretty normal. That's a typical, and I've worked in nonprofits and agency type settings before as an executive director and had boards of directors, and we've had people who serve as working board members, and then we have others who are representative of government or university roles or whatever. And it is sort of a more similar type advisory capacity than being an actual working member of the board or the committee. I think that is kind of that's the way that I understand those types of assignments to be. And that's sort of the way I interpret when I am sitting in on a MAC board meeting. I'm not trying to, necessarily influence the way that they want to, run their organization, but just to sort of be the eyes and ears for the town.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Can I ask a question? Just for clarification for me, is the idea to better define the role or to change the role from what it is? Because the existing, and either one of those is fine, obviously, that's for council to decide, but the existing language in that code says that the council representative shall participate in the work of the board, but shall not be an official voting member. So just as I'm listening to this discussion, it becomes evident that if this change takes place, it is just that, because the code defines that role already. So is it a matter of wanting to change that or better define what the responsibilities are?
It's interesting because that talks about a council member being appointed as a representative or liaison. And then when it talks about the next sentence, it says the council representative shall participate in the work, but it doesn't really mention a liaison. in that sentence. So maybe just a little sloppy.
Understanding that those are just interchangeable terms. And we've always called them liaisons, but they are the council representative on that board or committee. And
Well,
maybe-
work is certainly sufficiently vague, right, in how they participate in the work. I think we're trying to define that. Is what we're trying to do. And you could call it change, sure, but I mean, again, we talk about helping recruit members for these boards to represent citizens. So, more than likely we've recruited folks we know have similar ideals as us. So you've got that group of people, and then now we're going to speak up with our personal opinion. It starts to become less of a way for the town council to hear the voice of the citizens is my concern. And I don't see the need for another representative on these boards than the citizens we have. And I could see where that's certainly why other towns have adopted this as a best practice for council members to be more of an information conduit. Helping with the work, helping with really your main reason you're there is you're observing, reporting back to the council as to what's happening, what the concerns are, and reporting from the council what the scope of work that the council would like to see from that board.
I think that's well said. You make a good point. We've appointed citizens to operate and run these committees and boards and commissions. And I think that's what the point is, to let the citizens do that, and we're observing and guiding.
I agree. Now, whether that's a change in direction or not,
It does.
I don't have experience in that.
It doesn't seem to me like that's a huge change from what we have now. I think it seems to me that it's just going to clarify certain parts of it that might not be a bad idea. But my understanding of what our role was similar to this, just in listening to the conversation as a last meeting that we had when we were talking about who was going to do what.
Okay, well, it's a long meeting, and everybody hasn't had a good opportunity to review this stuff. It is something that we should try to vote and get something down at least at the next meeting. Harry, in the meantime, can take a look at it, see if there's any legal concerns with the language, and everybody can give it some more thought, and maybe the next time we meet, we can finalize something.
Just for clarification, you'll be able to finalize the language that you
Right.
want.
I know it's an ordinance, change
Then
the
we'll have to
ordinance.
draft the ordinance and.
Yeah, I understand. Okay. That takes us to the manager's report. We probably have gone over most of the manager's report in our discussion, but if there's anything else, you need to let us know.
Just that we are moving forward with the library addition project. We worked on that with the architects over the last couple of weeks, Sam especially, and worked through some stormwater drainage issues, and that project's moving forward, and I'll leave it at that. Other than again, mention that we do have a planned water utility board meeting next Monday at 6.
Okay. Yeah, so that'd be good. I mean, to educate those of us who haven't been on the council before, after that, at our next meeting. So you had that water No, not the water board, the WWTA meeting. When you have that on Wednesday, I guess you attend that, Boyd.
Mhm.
So we can kind of keep that at the forefront, just kind of figuring out what a plan could be in the future. Okay, the other business, communications and reports from the mayor/council. Is there anything that we haven't addressed already that needs to come up here? Okay. Reports from committees or boards. Do we have anything new since our last meeting? All right, everybody's hungry. The only other business I'll mention right now is I talked to, I talked to Bill Lusk about the Transportation Planning Organization. He thought it would be a good idea if I went to the meeting, so I'll go ahead and appoint myself as the member of the Transportation Planning Organization. That was the one open spot that we didn't finalize at the last meeting. And hang on, I had some notes.
I believe we will need a resolution appointing or that, and generally there's a proxy appointed as well.
Okay.
Draft those.
Okay. I've connected with Dave Cantrell. Hopefully the people who've been appointed to new boards that they haven't served on previously can make some connection with the people that are in charge of those, and just so you get to know what's going on with them. There's a couple of I've gotten emails. I'm sure you've all gotten emails from citizens. Sure, we will get plenty of them. I was going to mention a couple of them, but I think they have more to do with Loretta, so I'll hold off on that since she's not here. And then, so anyway, that's all I have. Anybody else have any other business? All right. Then we have a tentative agenda for December 28th. There was some discussion about whether to have a meeting December 28th. What's on the tentative agenda? I didn't print that out.
On the agenda right now, there's resolutions for board, commission, committee appointments, and then ordinances and discussions empty, other business, communication reports from mayor and council, and then reports from board. So there's not a whole lot on the agenda.
Yeah, without
deciding on people.
Without discussion of which folks you want to appoint to boards, commissions, and committees, that can't happen either. So.
Okay.
But I think we need to add discussion item, the liaison guidelines.
Okay. So we plan to have a meeting on the 28th. And we can make it a short one since there's not much on it.
Yes.
Okay. Let's do it. So we'll add that agenda item that Andrew mentioned. And everybody take a look at that between now and then. And if you can or want to call some of these applicants, I'll do that. Is there anything else? Then we can adjourn. Do we need a motion to adjourn or just adjourn?
You're welcome to
Carol?
just adjourn.
Okay, let's adjourn. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.